Hi and welcome to the video. We had a bit of fun with the hammer last night and I thought I'd just share it with you guys because it was an interesting fight. So as with these videos I've taught you through my thinking whilst the fight was happening. I hope you enjoy. So we find ourselves at Ayleswell with the red hammer currently at Ayleswell farm and retreating towards Bleakers. So we set off in pursuit of the hammer. To start with we're fairly close to the hammer but we'd need to take a moment to regroup and reform as a group. In this time the hammer starts to retreat towards Bleakers and we end up fairly far away from the hammer by the time we start moving. So here we go, we're just about grouped up now and we are heading off once the last couple of people make it to us, and because the farm is easier to attack from this northern set of stairs than the southern set of stairs because it is more hidden from view and the Reds generally defend it less, that's the side that we chose to push up. And because the hammer was fairly close, I do try pursuing the hammer rather than going for the flag. And at this point the group is with me and there's relatively few Reds around, so I feel fairly confident we'll be able to catch up with the hammer and be able to take it before it gets too close to Bleakers. The reason that I want to try and take it before it gets too close to Bleakers is because then the Reds won't be able to reinforce it as easily, because once it's close to Bleakers the Reds can just respawn there and be able to defend the hammer fairly easily. However, the back of the group starts getting caught up in the Reds that are already behind us, and therefore I'm forced to stop the group and focus on cleaning up the Reds that are already behind us to avoid the situation where half the group is caught out by these Reds and we wouldn't be able to kill the hammer anyway because we need the full group together, especially because we're a relatively small group for walls of only 12 players. So I'm checking the map at this point and see that the hammer's already made its way to Bleakers, which is unfortunate in the situation, and therefore I reassess my strategy accordingly, knowing that just the 12 of us is not going to be able to take on the inevitably mass of Reds that are on the hammer. And I notice at that point the hammer goes white, which must mean that they're changing over the hammer bearer within Bleakers. Possibly to just reset the timer or possibly just to share it between group members. It's hard to know. However, it is worth noting that the hammer's recharge bar, or whatever you want to call it, the thing that means that they have to kill enemy players to avoid the hammer blowing up, is back full again. So at this point I see that there's a massive Reds pouring out, so my focus isn't on taking on the hammer immediately. I focus on just trying to cut off the hammer from the rest of the Reds that will be coming from Bleakers. I know that there are other blues pouring in from Ayleswell, so if we can cut off the hammer and isolate them, then we'll be able to kill the hammer bearer without the Reds from behind being able to reinforce. This works fairly effectively and we are able to eliminate the hammer bearer. The Reds coming from Bleakers do apply quite a bit of pressure and I go down. However, fortunately the rest of the group don't go down and are able to cover the position where the hammer is, push the Reds back enough for one of our group members to be able to pick up the hammer. This is going to happen now, and we just focus immediately on just trying to cover the ground where the hammer is, because it takes quite a long time to go through the animation of gathering the hammer, so we need to give someone space to do so. Fortunately we get a camp up and I'm able to respawn, and at this point our hammer bearer does have the hammer. So now that we've got the strength of the hammer in the group, we're able to play a little bit more aggressively and start pushing into the Reds a bit more aggressively. As you can see, this is fairly effective and we managed to eliminate quite a few Reds and can put some pressure on the keep. So I know that we can't just push it immediately into the inner courtyard where the main gate is, because then the Reds will be able to use oils, and using these oils and other DPS will probably be able to eliminate the hammer. So I push along the north side to try and be able to push on the postern door, which is much harder to defend. Unfortunately at this point our hammer bearer actually gets a long loading screen and isn't able to move. So we have to cover the position, but quite humorously it's quite an easy position to cover and we actually end up doing quite a good job of keeping the Reds off the hammer. However, due to the long load screen, the hammer bearer decides that the best thing they can do is quit out the game so that the hammer is reset and someone else can take it. So we do spend a moment here just defending the position. Fortunately, as I say, it's quite an easy position to defend because the Reds have to drop off that rock to be able to push towards the hammer. We do start to get a bit of siege on us, but fortunately we were able to heal through this, especially because there was a lot of other blues with us. However, at this point we realise that the hammer is not going to be able to move anywhere, and this is the point where the hammer bearer chooses to log off. So we just need to wait around a little bit for all that to happen and for the game to register that that player has logged off so that someone else can pick it up. So in that time we just focus on clearing up any enemies that are trying to push on the hammer. However, the reds do learn quite quickly that they're not going to be able to take the hammer, and therefore aren't pushing particularly aggressively anyway. You'll see that there is a decent blue push towards the main gate itself, and this is doing a good job of keeping the reds distracted whilst we sort out the hammer. So there's a few more that push in now, but it's all fairly safe due to the other blues around. So at this point we're just waiting, and it does take a moment for the hammer to reset, and I'm just keeping an eye out for any threats, any potential big bombers or anything like that that could eliminate us as a group. However, it would take 2 or 3, because with all our defensive buffs active, we're not going to die to just one bomber. So we just have to keep waiting and keep waiting. There we go, and I think it is fairly soon that the hammer bearer is able to log out and someone else is able to take it. So I decided to take it just because there's a lot of other blues around, and I just need to make sure that someone within our group takes it, because we wouldn't want a random player who doesn't really know what they're doing taking the hammer and doing something ineffectual with it. So I believe it is soon. There is other blue guilds around, but like I say, I just don't want to trust the risk of a enemy pug taking the hammer. So just continuing to heal through, continue to wait, and then yes, as soon as the player manages to log out, I take the hammer and start, as originally intended, pushing towards the postern door. So fortunately the blues are still doing a good job of keeping the reds distracted at the hammer, so we push towards the postern door. And as anyone who's used the hammer or experienced being in route of a hammer will know, the doors go down fairly quickly when you've got the hammer. Postern doors seemingly a bit harder to knock down than other doors, because like with normal siege, you can't hit the actual door itself, so I'm having to find gaps and places to hit. It's much easier to knock down a door, a normal main gate door, with a hammer than it is the kind of awkward postern doors. So I'm trying a couple of different places to try and figure out where it's best, and end up just settling here. And it is slower than hitting a main gate down, but we do get there in the end. So I know that there's going to be heavy resistance on the flags, so I make the call at this point to push upstairs when we push in, to try and clear out the number of reds that are going to be inside, because I know that there's going to be a lot inside. So we're almost there, and fortunately the group has good healing at this point to heal through all the counter DPS that's targeted on me to try and eliminate the hammer, and then yes, as soon as it's down, we push upstairs. Fortunately, with the hammer and with a fully charged ultimate on the hammer, we were able to eliminate a lot of reds quite quickly. So I see that there's a lot of reds on the curved area of this top, and so choose to use the ultimate to be able to eliminate these players alongside the rest of my group. We then, with the main threat of reds eliminated and other blues pushing into support, we then just go down, focus on taking the keep. I hope you enjoyed this short video. I just wanted to give it as a bit of an example of how hammer fights work and how to understand them for anyone that's not experienced hammer before, especially if you're relatively new to PvP. So as always, I hope you enjoyed, and let me know if you have any feedback.